So our next session is on regional resiliency. Thank you for joining us. I have the morning sun hitting me, so I look like I'm outside in the real poppies, but actually I'm sitting here in front of my computer. All right, so I know that it's not news to those of you who are joining us today that some issues transcend governmental borders and require multi-agency and entity collaboration to solve. Climate impacts are one of these important issues, and there are many regional collaboratives forming across California to deal with climate change, both its impacts and how we can better address them in our communities. So today we wanted to present one case story of a regional collaboration and kind of discuss how regional governments can participate in these collaborations and what their role might be. And of course, this is one example. It's going to be different in all of the regions, but we thought this was a good place to start. So I would like to introduce Michael McCormick. Michael McCormick is the owner and principal of Farallon Strategies. Michael and I belong to a couple of unique clubs. We both belong to the former OPR employee club and the LGC employee club. So Michael, I'm going to turn it over to you now.
Great, thank you, Julia. Well, I'm going to just pull my screen up here and share my screen. Hi, everybody. I hope you're all doing well today. Can you confirm that you can see my slide here?
Yes.
Okay, all right, thanks, Julia. Well, so this is a really exciting topic, and I'm very excited to be here with two folks that have really been driving collaboration in the San Diego region. I'm going to give a little bit of a background of how these regional climate collaboratives have emerged and sort of the framing behind them versus in different type of governance structures that we're all used to seeing, whether it be regional agencies or collaboration or local government or CBOs working with us in various different capacities. And Darbi Berry and Lowe are two folks that have really been driving an innovative way of engaging in the San Diego region. And Darbi is, it's been so much fun working with her over the past 6 or 9 months on the California Resilience Partnership. And that emerged from some really interesting opportunities. She's going to talk about that a little bit more in a few minutes, but she's at the University of San Diego Nonprofit Institute, and she's the program manager for the San Diego Regional Climate Collaborative. She's been working on climate for years, has really been helping to drive innovation in the space over the past year in particular. And Anna Lowe, she's been working on climate and sustainability for 15 years in San Diego. It's wonderful to have her as a collaborative partner as well in the work in San Diego. And you know, it's when you think about what collaboration requires, it's really comes to interpersonal relationships and trust. You know, trust built over a number of years of people working together, doing exciting things, sometimes doing the mundane, but on the other side of it, looking at your colleagues and saying, hey, you know, I really appreciate the work we've done together to help move our communities forward. And so Darbi and Anna are two of those folks. So I'm just really happy to have them here. So I'm going to see if I can forward my slides. I forwarded them previously.
Hey, Ben, can you jump on and help?
I'll use my finger. There you go. That's the beauty of touchscreens. I can't get to my scroll bar because the Zoom content is in the way. So I struggled a little bit with what to put in our opening slide or around the history of regional collaboration and the nexus with regional agencies. But I think one of the things that individual set of organizations, whether it be local government, regional, state, federal, and the various subparts thereof, we've all developed different governance models to support the work that we do. And just like the regional agencies across California, across the country, so much of the work around collaboration outside of that more formal governance structure has resulted in summary reports, recommendations, lessons, and case studies. Most recently, the Regional Resilience Toolkit, published in 2019, helps to really pull some of those concepts together across the national scale. But ARCA, the Alliance of Regional Collaboratives for Climate Adaptation, it was founded in 2012 to help basically regions connect in a more organic way, peer mentoring, peer learning, sharing case studies, so that regions that were working on adaptation, starting with LA and San Francisco, but then adding 9 other regions as we've moved forward. Collectively, it represents almost the entire state now when you look at the map. And there's a couple of regions that aren't represented on this map on the left. One is the Inland Empire region, which is just emerging. Their collaboratives just being built. We're really excited to have them come into the fray. And I know the COG is working closely with Climate Resolve out there to support the development of that collaborative. We have a great need to have additional climate collaboratives in North Central Valley and San Joaquin and Central Valley, and then also Orange County. So there are some gaps in the climate collaborative space, but I think the exciting thing about this case study that we're going to talk about in San Diego is that collaboratives can be a compatible, augmentative force for the work that the regional agencies are trying to do. You can bring them in to do different things than what you've necessarily been traditionally able to do through your own governance structure, and the regional collaboratives can also bring you to the table as well. And I think Darbi and Anna are going to talk about this a little bit, but SANDAG was one of the founding partners for the San Diego Regional Climate Collaborative, and that really helped drive that early trust and developed a partnership around building support for work in the communities around climate resilience. We're in this next phase now, particularly in San Diego, but as the partnership, the California Resilience Partnership, moves northwards, building deeper connections across regions to help support project implementation. And these collaborative structures of local governments, nonprofits, community-based organizations, multiple regional agencies working together to drive progress in regions is really helping to connect organizations in ways that has been really hard to connect in the past. And particularly with the amount of funding that's coming forward from the federal government, pass-through funding to regional agencies, and direct funding of local governments and nonprofits for work on resilience and adaptation, it's a great time to help to explore these partnerships and look forward towards opportunities to work together. And I think one last thing that I would mention is, ARCA developed ARCA's governance, the Alliance of Regional Collaboratives for Climate Adaptation. Its governance emerged from a vacuum of governance at the statewide level on working together on adaptation. So we see, this when new issues emerge, discussions around how we need to manage those issues quickly get elevated as they hit a critical point in development. And when we think about climate adaptation, climate resilience, community resilience, we also have to think about the traditional way of framing resilience, which back in the hazard mitigation days was how quickly you recover from a shock. And now we're emerging as our part of our narrative is, how does long-term community resilience, climate adaptation, and impacts overlap with each other to really create change in that community and create a thriving community? How do you proactively get these issues addressed? And you see under the Newsom administration a much broader definition of resilience, which is around community cohesion, equity, environmental justice, and building that thriving community for the future. So in some ways, I've heard some people say, hey, the resilience is the new sustainability, but it's also, those of us in the climate adaptation space, it's kind of like, we should have been doing this all along, but we haven't been. And it's time to catch up and move forward. And I'm so excited to introduce Darbi to help us take to that next stage, because they're really doing a great job in San Diego of taking us forward. All right, Darbi, take it away.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Michael. And thanks everyone for having me today. As Michael said, my name is Darbi Berry. I am the program manager for the San Diego Regional Climate Collaborative. As the name is known, we are located in the San Diego region. San Diego is a little bit unique in that we take up the whole entirety of our county. And many of us know that is the most biologically diverse county in the region, as well as one of the counties in the region in the 48 contiguous states that has some of the greatest variability in our weather patterns. So when we think about, our mission to kind of achieve some climate resilience and equity overall, we're really in a good place to do that and be supportive to that work. So the San Diego Regional Climate Collaborative was founded in 2011. So one of the first climate collaboratives in the state. And I think Michael actually had a hand in that as well. So, really unique there. But our mission, is to advance climate change solutions and both mitigate and adapt to the effects of climate change. We do this work by envisioning a region that is both prosperous and resilient. We look at different factors of high quality life, fostering green economies, and really looking at how we're doing this approach equitably. And we think about that lens of, regional approaches. It's, some of our mission is not unlike that of our, local jurisdictions and larger regional agencies like SANDAG. So at the Climate Collaborative, we do this work through, trying to sustain our regional impact as an agency. And, we're really a network collaborator. So, our biggest role is to engage our members and bring together a more diverse set of community actors. So our regional collaborative was founded in 2011, kind of, as an ad hoc place for folks to come together and start talking about these problems, sharing, best practices. It came out of, what can we do, and really trying to establish that space of conversation and trust, like Michael said, and SANDAG as well as others in our region were at the table at the time. But in the past 10 years, we're celebrating our decade of existence right now. It's really evolved to a much more formalized network, but that sustaining trust is really still there. So through our work at the Climate Collaborative, we engage our members, in different working groups, network meetings. So, bringing in speakers and highlighting different projects from, across the region as well as globally is really how we kind of bring our region up to speed and maintain those relationships. We also do work ourselves when it comes to doing research and finding out and conducting those best practices. So we try to, fit ourselves into places where there's a need. And so we do this through strengthening our climate resilience hub. So we've done work in energy resilience, water equity and adaptation, as well as coastal and sea level rise work historically. As well as leveraging our collaborative capacity. So I'll speak to this a little bit specifically with our really, longstanding relationship with SANDAG, but we're here to, really be an agency that can be almost a second arm to our other regional agencies and really lend that support and, leverage the trust and relationships that we have. And we do this by, establishing different strategic partnerships, which I'll speak to in a few moments as well. But thinking about, just our role with SANDAG specifically, SANDAG and a couple of members, both at the staff and some different levels, were founding members of the Climate Collaborative in 2011. And since then, someone from that agency has really had strong representation on our advisory board. So, we've had different structures of governance over time, but, having really strong relationships with SANDAG has really supported that. They've also supported a lot of our work. So being able to produce both research and products. SANDAG over time supported the San Diego Regional Energy Partnership and our local government partnerships. So supporting how the San Diego Regional Climate Collaborative could really be supportive to SANDAG's work and vice versa. Is it in the form of research or, creating opportunities for engagement and education? So really making sure that those relationships stay open. And lately we've been working, really closely with SANDAG on 2 separate Caltrans SB1 adaptation planning grants that were awarded in 2018 and 2019. And so SDRCC was a subrecipient of those, and they're both, focused on advancing, this regional adaptation. So in 2019, we completed a regional adaptation needs assessment. So really trying to understand, what do we need as a region? How can we really push that agenda and push those issues forward? And right now we're working on, developing both an economic guidance document and an equity guidance document. So how can we be best supportive in helping SANDAG support its local agencies as well as our local agencies? In addition to that, creating a really great space for conversations and trust, like I mentioned. In addition to all of that work, SANDAG also participates in the Climate Collaborative's working groups. So we have a longstanding working group from 2014 on sea level rise and coastal resilience. And some of SANDAG staff actually serve on our leadership team for those working groups, as well as in adaptation and policy. And so in the last year, just wanted to talk about how, how the Climate Collaborative can be supportive to the work that COGs are doing, and SANDAG in particular. And so we've been working with partners at the Resilient Cities Catalyst, which is a spin up, and they're working on the California Resilience Partnership that Michael mentioned, which is, a large statewide effort. And we're really, excited that we're one of the regions that they are focusing on right now, creating these pilot projects. So we've been working with them since April of 2020. We did a, coastal exchange with our members, worked really closely with, making sure that SANDAG was in the fold for all of those conversations. And now we're, advancing these different lines of work around regional resilience, creating a future fund, and others that you can see on this slide here. But, one of the biggest things is making sure that we're not duplicating efforts. So, what roles do COGs have to play and what are they mandated to play, as well as how then can we, fit ourselves into those roles and be supportive of the work, and identifying that, we share a lot of the same goals. We want to see climate action. We want to see prosperous and resilient cities. And we want to see that happen in our regions as well. So just making sure that we're keeping these opportunities on the table and pushing, from different lenses of how we can be both supportive and in that space. And then just wanted to highlight, to share here, I don't really need to speak to too much of this, but wanted to share with folks in case they're interested for later. These are just some of the work that we've done in 2020. Specifically the climate leadership in San Diego story map that was developed through the SDREP program, with SANDAG really close in line. And so helping to elevate, different energy efficiency measures that folks are taking in the region, as well as the San Diego Regional Adaptation Needs Assessment that I mentioned as well. So with that, thank you so much. And I will turn it over back to you, Michael, I think, or Anna's up.
Go ahead, Anna, jump right on in. And Darbi, I got to tell you, it's very rare when you give somebody 10 minutes and they take exactly 10 minutes. So thank you.
Well, you're going to have to watch me, Michael, because COVID has just exacerbated my inability to manage time. So you can track me. Thank you, everybody. And as Darbi was walking through the history of the Climate Collaborative, I've realized that in my former role at another local agency here in the region, I was one of those founding individuals who has since moved on to other agencies. So I feel as if I've grown or aged dramatically over the last few minutes here. But thank you again. And I think Darbi did a really nice job of kind of helping to highlight some of the unique nature features in particular of our region. And I was just going to go ahead and speak a little bit more to that because it really does highlight the critical need for which our region does need to collaborate so closely. And so really our region is really geographically unique. We are distinctly bordered on all sides. We have, the international US-Mexico border to the south. We have the Pacific Ocean to the west, Camp Pendleton to the north, and then really we have the desert to the east. And so really it does kind of geographically isolate us in some ways. And that, again, could be very good or it could be challenging. And so I think, there's ups and downs to all of those things. But as a single county with 19 local governments, we also have 17 tribal governments, and we have the largest concentration of military assets in the world. So our geography, again, really does necessitate collaboration and communication. And not only is the region geographically unique, but as Darbi mentioned, diversity rich. So again, just all of the ecological diversity spanning 4 climate zones and really a biodiversity hotspot here in North America. So, so with that, many of you know the San Diego region's population and land use statistics, but these features really are why SANDAG has been a leader in this space for decades in different capacities. So sorry, Michael, I'm moving a little slower than you are. And it really all kind of starts with a vision. So the previous slide there. SANDAG really is unique compared to some of the other like agencies throughout the state, because we don't just plan, but we're also responsible for project delivery. We're responsible for supporting air quality planning, regional tolling, regional beach sand replenishment program, and really so much more. And so all of that is to say that we really can't do it alone. And I can't underscore enough how important it is that our region is able to work together and really kind of highlighting how grateful we are to have this partnership with the San Diego Regional Climate Collaborative, where really kind of SANDAG, then can collaborate and also share some of the responsibilities. And so we see our value as something as far as helping provide a regional vision for resilience and really bringing, we need all of these pieces to work together so that we can all collectively get to where we need to be going. Next slide, thank you. So resilience is a term that is widely used and frequently with different or slightly different variation in meaning. And so today I'm not here to really define resilience, but instead I kind of wanted to share how SANDAG is approaching resilience. And so we view regional resilience as a comprehensive balance between climate mitigation and adaptation. So mitigation being active intervention, behavior or frequency or use of something and reducing the active emissions of greenhouse gases, where adaptation is more adjusting to the way we do something in anticipation of an impact or impacts to reduce the negative effects. So that's kind of how we approach resilience. And I wanted to just take a few minutes and highlight some of the different types of climate mitigation and climate adaptation programs that SANDAG has been working on. So next slide, please. So SANDAG has a very long history of climate mitigation. And it's funny, you don't really realize what it is and how you're doing it until, you can take a few steps forward and actually look over your shoulder and realize all of the things that you've done and how they all work together and really moving in this direction, this resilience direction. And so, we've had a clean transportation program for almost 20 years. Developing regional readiness plans, and more recently launching an electric vehicle infrastructure incentive program to reduce greenhouse gas emissions in the region, and then of course supporting our state goals as well. We also have an environmental mitigation program that has been around almost as long, and this program is tied to mitigation requirements for our projects. As I mentioned, we also build projects, and so as part of the transportation plan and building those projects, what we do is we purchase mitigation lands and to help offset some of the potential impacts there. But it's not just that we're purchasing lands, but we're looking at habitat as well as species. So it's a comprehensive program, and it's been very successful. And the last program I'll mention is our roadmap program, which started as energy efficiency primarily for some of our member agencies who didn't have similar matching funds from our local utility. And it grew based on the demands of our member agencies to really offer climate action planning support for our member agencies. So now almost every jurisdiction in our region has a climate action plan, just with a few, in process or considering. And really the intent here was to help streamline the process and also ensure that the methodologies and the data that were being used were consistent across the region. So really helping to streamline and make consistent all of those aspects. And so through that, we developed this regional climate action planning framework, or RECAP, which is that fun document cover that you see on the top right-hand corner there. So that really has created a world of support for our member agencies, whether we're helping provide them with their work with the support or not. They're able to offer this to their consultants or analysts to make sure that if there's an issue, maybe we need to fix something, and it's really kind of a living document, and really helps us as a region move in the collectively. And part of this is also providing monitoring reports. So when people create climate action plans, we have to monitor progress over time, and so that's another aspect of this work. And finally, we developed a climate action data portal, which houses all of this information for our member agencies as well as the public. So it's publicly accessible. And so you can access your data whenever you need it, and you can update your documents as possible. So really this is actually one of, if you can't tell, one of the latest and greatest, and quite exciting for us. So it's not just climate action and climate mitigation, but it's also climate adaptation. And so the climate adaptation work that SANDAG's been doing has actually been goes back even longer. Our shoreline monitoring program, for example, has been around since the 1980s. It's obviously far before my time, but the San Diego region's beaches, as many of you know, provide not only recreational opportunities, but really are a vital component of our economy. And as temperatures rise, it's a nice place to come and cool off as well. And so really our work over time has also evolved to ensure that not only are we monitoring, but really kind of altering that focus from erosion control and planning but it's also now adapting to the impacts from sea level rise, and really looking at our regional transportation infrastructure and other critical assets along the coast, and trying to figure out what we need to do to ensure the longevity of those assets. And so, as I mentioned before, as a founding member of the Climate Collaborative, we acknowledge the value and the need to consider climate adaptation, but really, at the time in particular, didn't have the structure beyond the shoreline program to do so. And so that's definitely changed since 2011, but our relationship has evolved, just as the needs of the region have. And so, as we're thinking about, as we SANDAG are thinking about how to adapt to these impacts from an infrastructure and needs perspective, Darbi mentioned a couple of Senate Bill 1 grants that we received that we're working very closely with the Climate Collaborative on, as just a few ways with which we're trying to really understand what those impacts are and where and how we can support the region. And so, as climate continues to change in California, and we experience a number of these impacts, many of you might be familiar with, the temperatures that are rising, and the feeling that impact, whether it's on your AC bill or just needing to add more fans to the home or whatever. But those heat waves are getting warmer and increasing in duration. We've got more droughts, and these wildfire events that I think we can all relate to have become more frequent and quite extreme. And so as we experience all of these things, we're trying to figure out what to do with that. And so here's just, I wanted to offer one example here. This is, if again, some of you may have heard, here is a picture of the Del Mar Bluffs here in San Diego County. And having a few issues here. As you can see, the bluffs are eroding, and we have very critical assets here. We have the rail lines that run right along the coast, and so really trying to figure out how to adapt to this. And even just a few weeks ago, after the last round of rains we had here in the region, that photo there on the top right is actually from just that moment when the bluffs really started to collapse. So it's just a very real and a very current issue. And we're all kind of trying to figure out how to deal with this. So, you know, to the extent that we can, we need to do this together. And we're all, like I said, evolving and growing the work that we're doing to ensure that we are able to support one another. And, you know, as we continue to develop our regional plan, resilience will remain at the forefront of that effort, really thinking about the innovative opportunities and solutions to the region. Those innovations require resilience, and to ensure that we're able to create reliable, sustainable, and effective means for moving goods and people throughout the region. And so, you know, without thinking about a specific disaster or impact or event, you know, we really want to recognize that all of, you know, that the entire region will be impacted by one or the other. And it's not just, you know, infrastructure or hard infrastructure, but instead there's a whole equity component that plays into those impacts of climate resilience and those climate impacts. And so really trying to figure out how best to integrate equity, and really considering all of those pieces in relation to climate as well. And there's a lot of great work going on throughout the state, and we really are looking also to the Climate Collaborative, because they're very informed and working with that. So with all of that to say, SANDAG is continuing to integrate climate resilience and have climate resilience at the forefront of our work, as well as you know, other priority projects, including the comprehensive multimodal corridor plans, and really trying to understand what that means in relation to all of this work that we're doing. So I will stop there. Hopefully that was relatively timely.
Fantastic. Thank you, Anna. Very close. I don't know, you and Darbi can do your competitions from all the presentations moving forward. We might have to do a roadshow. No, thank you, Darbi and Anna. You know, I think a couple of the things I pulled out of your comments was the focus on multi-benefit projects. You know, not just thinking about climate adaptation in a silo or resilience. It's the whole of the community and how we come together more effectively to help support work across the region, from scoping and planning to engagement. But now there's such a focus on implementation. To Darbi's point about the California Resilience Partnership and Resilient Cities Catalyst, you know, bringing dollars and partnerships in new and unique ways to help support the implementation of projects and programs. Those of us that have been, I mean, I've been working on climate change for 20 years now. And, you know, those of us that have been in the space for so long, and Anna, you and Darbi, you were probably both feeling this too, is there's this tendency to have perpetual policy paralysis. You're just continually planning and replanning because the implementation piece of it is a heck of a lot harder than the planning piece. And I'm a planner, so I can say that. And the implementation side is also more expensive. So the funding stacks needed to get us to where we really need to be are going to be more complex and more challenging. And I think the other driver of a number of the newer collaboratives, and there's 24 collaboratives across the country right now working on adaptation. And we have, you know, depending on how you look at it, 9 of them plus or minus in California. And a number of the new collaboratives in California are driven by this need to really connect on implementing local government mandates. So general plans now mandate adaptation be addressed in the safety element or integrated throughout general plans. Well, what greater point of connection between you know, regional agencies' work and these collaboratives that are coming together to help support each other and local governments moving forward on these adaptation mandates. So growing together into this future state that we need to be in to really help drive change faster, to help address the shocks that are affecting us now and the ones that are to come as a result of climate. So I don't see any questions in the Q&A. I do have a number of websites that I'm going to put up post this presentation in the resources section for the conference. And we'll also include those in an updated PowerPoint presentation that's also going to be posted, so you can reference back to this. And basically, I was just tracking as we went through the various points of who was doing, who was referencing which websites. We'll get those posted. And I think when I think about like what comes out of the San Diego case study, I think one of the things I'd like to, maybe I'll just queue up the first question and then we can have other questions that come in. Bill, if that's okay, nod your head.
Yeah.
Okay, when you look at the uniqueness of the relationship between the San Diego Regional Climate Collaborative and SANDAG, what do you think has been kind of the secret to the sauce to working effectively together? There's a formal presentation and then there's like the softer side of the human side of like, how do you actually work together well? Can you share your perspectives on that? And either one of you, whoever is most excited about sharing the answer, you can go first.
I'll since I guess I've been around since its inception, I guess I have some insights, but really, I mean, I think, one of the benefits is that we all actually really like working together. So I think, that in and of itself really helps a lot. But beyond that, it's really communication. And so, it's one thing to be polite all the time, but it's another thing to be, effective. And so I think with that, I know Darbi, we over, time, there have been some, I hate to say uncomfortable, but there have been some uncomfortable conversations, just, kind of trying to dance around, being cautious of feelings, because the intent is never to be disrespectful or the like, but really wanting to ensure that we are communicating and recognizing, that, for example, SANDAG has some roles and responsibilities. And so how do we, best communicate that to ensure that the collaborative is really successful versus, setting, one or the other up to duplicate or otherwise. So I think communication is really critical.
Yeah, and I can add to that. I think also, our role is really making sure that communication exists between both us as the climate collaborative, but also our members. And so, leading by example and creating those really, unique spaces of trust and openness and, having those kinds of conversations really encourages our members to do the same. And so being able to be that conduit for trust extending beyond just, our governance of the collaborative itself, but who we also, are pushing.
That's great. That I think it's really important to acknowledge that these conversations aren't always perfectly clean, right? Because a lot of what we're doing in the adaptation space, climate adaptation and the resilience space, and even the emissions reduction space, a lot of it is starting from scratch, building things that haven't existed before. And so you have to take case models and data that maybe was used for other things to start from, and then build out the relationships, build out the information and data. And I think moving forward, one of the most important connections to the collaboratives for regional agencies seems to be that engagement with the community, connecting at a deeper level across not just the agencies within a region, but also the nonprofits, the foundations, the universities, and collecting together in a more collaborative framework on implementation. And I think the presentation today really highlighted that. So Darbi and Anna, thank you so much for your time and your contributions to this field and the practice and the growing space for regional climate collaboratives across the country.
And Mike, before you, I think Hasan wanted to say.
Yeah, I was going to say we have a special guest.
Yeah, we have a special guest, and he wanted to put a capstone on it. So, Hasan, your sound. There you go.
Thank you. After a year of zooming, I'll get that mute button right finally. Thank you. Good morning to all of you. Thank you, Michael, Darbi, Anna, great presentation and a great conference, Bill. So yesterday morning, Chair Friedman talked about how important it is to align our mobility with our environmental goals. Yesterday afternoon, we talked about equity and it's important how to integrate it. And on equity, just want you to know that it is more than just slogans and statements. It has to be followed by action by all of us. We have an obligations to not continue with the sins of the past when it comes to transportation. And then today, Michael, Darbi, and our own Anna really highlighted how important the topic of collaboration when it comes to resiliency and adaptation. As I always say, you can fight nature, but nature is always going to win at the end. In San Diego, Anna gave you an example of the bluff. In my short 10 years at SANDAG, 3 times I had to use my emergency power to authorize quick fix just to keep the train running. And how many times we're going to put piles to strengthen things? It's not going to work. So we have to adapt. We have to move the bluff. We have to think as a region, as a state, that we have obligations because transportation impact environment and the environment impact transportation. So we at SANDAG recognize the magnitude of the work we have ahead of us as a region for more resilient to climate change. And we're grateful for the partnership with the collaborative, the cities, the stakeholders. But I'm really grateful for the 3 speakers today, Michael, Darbi, and Anna. And I'm grateful for you, Bill, to put this together. And I just want to make it known to everyone watching here that Bill Higgins is my favorite CALCOG director of all. Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to say a few words.
Thank you.
He's my favorite too.
That's good.
All right. Well, I'm going to say, thank you guys. I'm going to